I want to talk about the hypocrisy of parents that happens on multiple levels. And I don't know about you, but if you confront somebody who's a parent about these issues, well, they just lose their minds, okay? And if you even begin to scratch the surface of these topics with your parents, especially if you're a younger person, well, you know, God bless you, because they just might beat your ass. The hypocrisy of parents is something special, is something to behold. First of all, I love the fact, usually parents, let's just say we have a young couple and they have kids, right? Usually these young parents are extremely strict, rigorous, stern. They really don't allow for any softness when it comes to raising their children. I have seen this. I have had interactions with these kinds of parents, and now that they're older, right, and they're grandparents, they have become these pussycats, these puppy dogs, these pushovers, these pansies that get bullied by their grandkids. I have seen this, and it disgusts me, and I've actually had, older people tell me, well, I can't wait for my kids to have kids so I can be a grandparent. I can't wait to have grandkids. And of course, this struck me because, they told me that, yes, they were, and you can tell from their demeanor, the kind of person they are, that, yeah, they were really strict, unforgiving, merciless parents. They were no nonsense, right? And basically, these types of parents usually make the lives of their kids a living hell. A living hell. I have seen this, right? So I'm struck by this hypocrisy, and this has happened to me so many times where these parents, now that their kids are old adults, now they're like, I don't know, they're like high or something, and they're looking like this, and they're like, well, I can't wait to become a grandparent. I need me some grandkids. And I'm just like, hold up. Do you remember when you were an absolute piece of shit? Like, I remember, okay? I recall. These people, they were just like these, I don't know, these machines, these unfeeling machines, punishing their kids, just making their lives a miserable, just sucking out all of the joy and all of the happiness, no time for friends, no times to just have some fun and play outside, or do your homework, do your chores, no back talk, blah, 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 absolutely dictators, tyrants. They were terrorizing their own kids. And now that they're older, they have become these docile little hobgoblins. They're like, well, I wish I had me some grandkids. I wish I had me some grandkids. Everybody has grandkids but me. And I'm just like, you see this? I'm gonna smack you with it, right? And worst of all, these hypocrites who were absolutely like they were like prison guards to their kids, and now they're like these little they are like these little servants to their grandkids. I have seen this, and it disgusts me. It sickens me. They have become these little lackeys for their grandkids. They do them any craving, any yearning, whatever their grandkids want. They just simp. Okay, this is the word. They simp for their grandkids. And I'm just like looking at this and I'm just like, I'm pulling back like, right? To give you a genuine example, there was this guy when he was younger, like he was the meanest fucking drunk. You can't even imagine. This guy, it didn't matter if you were a little kid. If he was drunk and if you got in his way, he would beat your ass the next Sunday. He would beat you and treat you like trash for no reason if he was drunk, right? And he was a terrible father, because of his alcoholism. Terrible father. I mean, an absent father would have been much better, right? But now, because he literally drank himself almost to death. The doctor told him, one more sip and you're done for. Your liver will explode. And because he's a pussy and a scaredy cat and he can't go through with it, he just stopped drinking. And now he's a grandparent. He's a granddaddy, folks. And I kid you not, his little grandkid, a little boy, like his grandkid is bullying this grown-ass man. This little toddler is terrorizing and treating his own grandpa like he were a slave. And his grandpa he's like just this little victim, and he does whatever his grandson wants. Okay, and I'm just looking at this, and I don't understand how this is possible. The hypocrisy. You were a terrible, terrible parent. So strict, so terrible. And now you're just this lamb to slaughter for your grandkids. Like, I've seen this, like, grandparents, they just bend over backwards for their grandkids. For realsies. Simping for their grandkids for no reason. And they made their kids' lives a living hell. I've seen this too many times. The hypocrisy, it's just so shocking. And you can bring forth the explanation or the excuse, well, maybe they realized that they were terrible parents and now they want to make up for it. No, there is no making up for it. Okay? There is no making up for it. The fact that you almost ruined your kids' lives with this strict seriousness that sucked all the joy out of it. There is no excuse. You can't be forgiven, right? Doesn't matter that you act like a little simp for your grandkids. It will not compensate. Okay? It will not compensate. And it certainly doesn't help that they went to the other extreme and now they're just these doormats for their grandkids. Okay? And I just love the hypocrisy of some parents. They're strict, they're overly serious, they don't have time for nonsense. And I've seen they wouldn't allow their kids to have fun, to play. They were so mean to their kids, like, do your homework, study, even applying a few slaps here and there for good measure. Just terrible parents. And, and their kids grew up. And because their kids didn't have a good time growing up because of their extremely strict and extremely serious parents, their kids moved away and they don't really come to visit as they should. It's their right? They don't really want anything to do with their parents, not really, because they've had enough. Their childhood was ruined. And these parents now that they're old, I should say, they're old fucks. They start complaining out of nowhere. Nobody, my kids don't visit me. My kids don't call me. My kids moved away. These ungrateful kids. And I'm just like, they can't understand the events that have led to this conclusion, as they don't understand why this has happened. It is because they were absolutely terrible parents and they ruined their kids' childhood, and they even traumatized their kids, some of them. And now that they're old and alone and nobody pays them any attention, they're just like, these ungrateful kids, they won't come to visit me. They never call. They're so ungrateful. I gave them everything. And I'm just like, shut up. Shut up, grandpa, you old fuck. Right? I mean, the hypocrisy. I mean, no wonder their kids just ran for the hills and never looked back. It's because you were a terrible person and you were a worse parent. That is why your kids don't want anything to do with you, Buster. Big dummy. Okay? And I love the fact, you see, there's this stereotype in young parents who think that if they're strict and stern and they just they're always on their kids, telling them to study and learn and do their homework, and because they imagine that if they pursue this, then that means that they will have a bright future, that wealth, that security is guaranteed if they just study and learn and blah blah blah. Sometimes this happens. Sometimes this is the case. Sometimes this cliche actually comes true. But I have observed a good amount of cases where the parents were just gun ho, just you better learn, you better study because the future will be bright. You'll be a doctor, you'll be a scholar, college, and these kids just wasted their childhood just trembling over books because the parent was screaming at them because, oh boy, the stereotype, the cliche, the bright future, you gotta learn early. And guess what? Most of these kids, they have an average, like an average income. They did not become these tycoons. All right, they don't have that security. A few of them do, but most of them don't, even though they studied and learned and did their homework, and they spent summer vacation just studying fucking, I don't know, big ass books. They didn't become absolutely successful just because they wasted their childhoods learning and studying and doing their homework. So most of these parents, they did not, the only thing they accomplished by being so stern and serious was to push away their kids, and traumatizing their kids. And now, this was pointless, useless, meaningless, without a positive result. No wonder your kid doesn't want anything to do with you. Okay, no wonder they don't want anything to do with you. You were insane, right? And there have been, I've seen this, there are so many parents in their hypocrisy that they don't even have the balls to acknowledge this and to just, I don't know, maybe apologize to their kids. I'm sorry, I was a bit of a dictator back in the day. I thought that this was the way for you to have a bright future. It didn't turn out that way. So now they compensate by being pushovers and doormats for their grandkids. And I'm just like, man, you can say anything about me, any terrible thing. But one thing you can't say is that I'm not a hypocrite. I will never be a hypocrite, ever. Okay? Hypocrisy just is ugly. It disgusts me. All right? And I also love these parents who don't really bother with their kids. I've seen cases where the kids were just left to their own devices for realsies. Like the kids were doing everything by themselves because their parents were like living their own lives separately, for real. And I love these parents who don't get involved at all with their kids. They just leave their kids to their own devices, whatever. And this has happened to me. I think this is the most popular thing that happens. All of a sudden you graduate high school. There has been no discussion whatsoever about your career, profession, what sort of university do you want to go to, if you want to go to university. There has been Absolutely no discussion. They never asked you, what do you want? What do you want to do in life? What are your goals? Do you have goals? There has been, they simply ignored you. And now, a day after graduated high school, they just come out of the woodwork feeling all responsible all of a sudden, right? Like hobgoblins, right? They're coming at you, T-posing, and they're like, so, yeah, you know what, buddy? It's time for you to get a job real quick, And I'm just like, huh? Like, what you talking about, right? Like, this happened to me. I'm sure maybe this happened to you. This happens to a lot of people, I think, where there is absolutely no discussion. There is no involvement, right? The parents don't involve themselves one bit because they're living their own lives. And all of a sudden, the parents decide to be all responsible and tell the kid, oh yeah, by the way, it's time for you to get a job and it's time for you to get the fuck out of here. Okay, pack your shit and get the fuck out of here. I know you don't have any life experience. I know that you have absolutely no experience whatsoever. You're like an 18-year-old. You're just like, you're already having an anxiety attack, and your parents are like, get the fuck out of here. You're an adult now, right? Get a job, right? This happened to me. This probably happened to you. I think this is the case usually. This is how it unfolds, and I'm just like, the hypocrisy of this is just like, I'm so shocked, right? That parents, they don't consider the consequences and the implications of this. Okay, you have to sit down with your kid. You have to talk to your kid. You have to explain to your kid how life works, how everything in human society, in civilized society works. Okay, you have to explain this. Listen, I'm not complaining, but my folks did not explain anything to me ever. Nothing. I had to find everything out for myself. And let me tell you, it wasn't a fun ride. It wasn't smooth sailing. Okay, they did not tell me. Listen, the only advice they gave me when I was about, I don't know, 15, they told me, just don't get a bitch pregnant. Not exactly like that, but that was the message. Don't get a bitch pregnant. That was it. The rest of the shit about life, I had to discover myself, okay? And it wasn't easy. So, what you need to do is, as a parent, you need to sit your ass down with your kid, invest your time in that kid, and make sure that kid turns out right. Make sure that kid is complete. Make sure that kid is explained certain things. Don't just wait until your kid is almost an adult and tell them, oh yeah, by the way, you gotta go to college, get a job, and pack your shit and get the fuck out of here, Billy. Like this, I feel like this happens to a lot of kids after they graduate high school, without any prior anything. No discussion, no dialogue, no, for example, there's no like, so like, what would you like to, invest in? What sort of profession? Like, do you know how, banks work? Do you know how the IRS works? Do you know, like, what do you need to do at a job interview? Shit like that. Right? Do you know that there are certain taxes involved? Do you know how money works for real? Shit like that. And usually there is absolutely no explanation to anything, no investment. I feel like a lot of kids, they just wake up one day and their folks are like, okay, we've taken care of you for 18 years. It's time for you to hit the hills. Hit the hills. Get the fuck out of here. Right? And it's just a damn shame. This hypocrisy. And let me give you another example of this hypocrisy. And I guess you can call this I guess you can call this a sort of psychological analysis of parenting in general. You know what I hate the most in parents is is these parents, they have a kid or kids, right? And when these kids are little, they're cute, they're also giggly, and their parents are just swooning over their kids. They're basically simping for their kids. They're just like fanboys and fangirls for their kids, which is all right. But the problem is, the very second this little cute little kid grows up and develops a personality, a mindset, the ability to think, and the ability to critique, that is the precise moment when this kid stops being cute to its parents. I have seen this. This is the psychology of a lot of parents. I've seen this, and it is frightening. I think it happens a lot, and this is why this happens. And I think this is the reason why a lot of people have kids, a lot of couples have kids. The psychology behind it. You see, when a kid is little, a kid views its parents as a god. Okay, a little kid basically worships its parents as a god. The parents to a child is everything. They represent everything. Okay? But as the child grows up, develops independence, critical thinking, you know what happens? That kid now has the ability to see through the bullshit, because parents are full of bullshit. So now the kid is a bit older and has the ability to say no, has the ability to criticize, has the ability to talk back and point out the nonsense of his or her parents. Parents don't like this. Okay, parents don't like this for one reason. I guess that just like with pet owners, it's the same psychology. When your kid is little, like, you are generally a god. You are completely in control. You have ownership over that kid's little life, and they worship you. It's probably such a fantastic feeling. It's like you're empowered. It's like, I'm a god, and you're just a little kid, and you think the world of me. This is the psychology of young parents, right? It's the same psychology with pet owners. I mean, you as a parent, you now are in charge of molding this little kid in a way that you wish. You're in charge. You're the god, right? Everything that you do or say, the kid is like a soldier. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No questions asked. Okay. Docile, obedient. I would say that parents like that. Yeah. They like to be obeyed unconditionally. It must be a fantastic feeling. But when the kid grows up a little bit and starts to develop critical thinking, well, that kid isn't cute anymore. That kid isn't giggly anymore, because now that kid can see right through you and your bullshit. And I've seen this, okay? I've seen this so many times where when the kid was when the kid was small, I mean, the parents were just so gaga, so in love with the kid. And then the kid grew up a little and started to say no, and, I won't do that, and blah, 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 calling them out on their bullshit. And the parents were just like, man, this fucking kid, right? Ungrateful kid. Like, the switch was immediate. You know why? Because now you're not in charge anymore. That kid does not worship you anymore. That kid is not an obedient, an obedient slave that follows you and respects you unconditionally anymore. Because now that kid is a person, an individual, and you don't like that as a parent. When I was way younger, and I started to see through my parents' bullshit, what my parents would say always? Man, you changed. man, you change. You're different. Like, why are you so different? And I'm just looking at these two clowns, and I'm just like, bro, like, I'm not your little pet. I'm not your little butler. I'm not your little robot servant. Like, what are you talking about? You know, this is what parents want. They want their kids to be like this. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is what they want because it's nice, that psychological serotonin. That unconditional worship, respect, love, and even fear, right? A lot of parents, they like their kids to be afraid of them, right? And I'm just like, bro, you hypocritical motherfuckers. You're disgusting, right? You're disgusting, right? This is the psychology of parents. This hypocrisy. How do you switch like that? How do you switch? You either love your kid and support your kid, or you don't. You don't just switch because your kid isn't your slave anymore. Come on now. Come on now. And another thing, when parents are young, in their prime, their kids are needy. Okay, their kids they just need their parents for various reasons, and wouldn't you know it, their parents, they just don't have the time. They're busy, they got their own shit to do, hobbies, whatever. They're living their own lives. So a lot of kids, I guess, they feel rejected. But as time goes on and the kids grow older and the parents get older, a switch happens. And now that the parents are older, they don't really go out as much. They don't have a lot of hobbies anymore. They don't really have friends. Come on now. So now, all of a sudden, overnight, the parents just woke up one day and they decided, I want to spend some quality time with my kid. Where's my kid? Where's my ungrateful kid? Where you at, boy? Right? And now, the kid, being a teenager or a bit older, the kid is like, bro, I gotta get out there and live my life. I gotta socialize and shit. Gotta find a purpose, goals. I ain't got time for you. Right? And this is what parents don't understand. Okay, your kids need to get out there and live life and experience life and make connections and understand the world. They need to find out who they are quickly, and they need to discover what they want to pursue in life, because otherwise, as it has been proven today, time and time again, because kids have been babied for so long and pampered and put in front of devices. Now we have adults older than me who just don't know who they are and they don't know what they want in life, and they don't know nothing about nothing, and they have no social skills, and they're just like, and they have anxiety, and they have depression, and they're on medication for anxiety. And I'm just like, bro, where were your parents? Okay? Because this is just grown-ass people playing with Legos is unacceptable. Your parents are to be blamed for this, in part, at least. Right? It's just, And this is another thing that's so funny to me. When you're younger, especially in your teenage years, I mean, the hormones are going crazy. You just want to get out there and just, have some fun, experience some shit, the usual stuff. And your parents are just like, they're usually negative. They're always like, if you go, you be careful, don't do shit, don't drink, don't, use protection, whatever. Usually they are against you having fun or going out, period, right? Which is whatever. But this is what happens. Time goes on, and then your kids, these parents, all of a sudden, wake up one day and they discover that their kids are full-blown adults, and they're still living in the basement. And they're playing video games and watching anime. Okay, and parents are getting nervous now, because they don't understand what's going on. And listen, I'm not blaming parents solely. Okay, everybody is at blame here, but parents hold a lot of the blame. Okay, this can't be denied. So when your young kid was eager to explore the world and and wanted to live its life. You just were against it. You were afraid that your kid was going to make some mistakes. Of course, I understand. And you were always against it. Don't go out. Don't, stay at home, learn, study, college, get a job. You'll have time to party then. But time goes on and your kid stops going outside. And you, as a parent, all of a sudden wake up one day and you're like, huh? How did this happen? Right? I mean, did you forget that you had a part to play in all of this? Okay? You are in part responsible. Listen, I understand that a lot of parents are afraid that their teenage kids might make certain mistakes and ruin their prospects and potential, usually getting a bitch pregnant or getting pregnant. I understand that. But listen, okay? Your kids, just like you, when you were younger, they're gonna make mistakes, no matter what. I would say that you have to make certain mistakes in life in order to learn and grow and mature as a person. I always say a lesson learned without suffering is meaningless. Okay, and I think that certain mistakes in life, they are a sort of rite of passage. Small mistakes, not the big ones. Getting a bit drunk, whatever. Doesn't matter. These have to happen. These experiences have to happen for your kid, because if not, they're gonna miss out, or maybe they will feel that they're missing out, and then they're just gonna get depressed and stay at home and stay in the basement, and then you're gonna wonder why your kid never goes out, and he's like 32 now. Right? You gotta have some sort of awareness as a parent, bruh. You have to. It's time for you to wake up, right? Because, again, I'm not blaming parents, only parents, but it's obvious to me that they are partly responsible for a lot of the issues that people my generation go through, or younger, or a bit older. It's there. It's there. And you can't tell me that the parents didn't have something to do about this. In part, it is because of them. You were completely strict and stern and serious, and you prohibited a lot of things, especially for your kid to have fun and go out, because of all these stupid excuses. And now you woke up one day and your kid is like 29 years old and he doesn't want to go out. She doesn't want to go. She wants to stay indoors and play video games and watch anime for 20 hours a day. And their diet is only energy drinks and fucking gummy bears. And you're like shocked. You don't know what happened, right? I mean, try to look in the mirror for once. Okay, the hypocrisy of parents are just, and let me tell you, I'm not trying to say that I'm superior than anybody, but you have to have some sort of awareness and accountability. Of course, I understand, right? Because I'm not a moron. I understand that being a parent and parenting is probably the hardest job in the world, because you are responsible for another human being's development. You might be responsible why your kid turns out to be a fucking monster. Or you might be responsible why your kid turns out to be a positive force in the world. Parenting is probably the most important job in the world because of those two reasons. Right? And I would say that a lot of couples take parenting way too easy. They think it ain't no biggie. You think that if you're well off and you give your kid, all of the, if you give your kid all of the prospects and advantages that money can buy, you think that's enough, and your kids are so ungrateful. It takes more to create a complete human being than material wealth. It takes way more. Material wealth is a plus, a bonus, of course, but it takes more to create and rear and nurture a proper, decent human being, right? And you can clearly look around today and you can see that a lot of people are incomplete. They are incomplete people for various reasons. Okay? I remember when I was about, 14 or 15 years old. And, I was watching too much anime. Too much anime, right? I was part of that generation who had access to the internet. And, my folks, being the boomers that they were, they always told me, you're watching too many of those damn cartoons. And I was like, Rob, stop, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about, boomer. This is art. Anime is art, right? But now that I'm much older, I look back at that moment, on those scenes, and I'm just like, you know what? Boomer or no boomer, they were absolutely 100% correct to tell me that. They were absolutely correct. And thankfully, I stopped and moved on to better things, because otherwise I could have been just another weeb, right? And that is not to say that I don't like the art form. Of course I do, but I take it in small doses. Okay. So yeah, that was a good moment of parenting. You know, it's so important. Like people have absolutely no concept of how important it is to be there for your kid, okay? To make sure that they aren't influenced or corrupted by certain things, because they might end up in a bad place, right? And listen, and I will end this video with this. A lot of parents, a lot of couples, they have kids, I would say, without thinking. They bring into this world, into this life, another human soul that inevitably will have to face all sorts of suffering and pain and misery, because that's what life is, generally speaking. And they have kids so easily, without a bit of conscience. They never think about the consequences of their actions, of what it entails to have kids. And, we are brought into this world without our consent, having to suffer. And there's no doubt that every kid will be talked down to and called, oh, you ungrateful, I gave you everything, I brought you into this world, I gave you life, I gave you everything. And I'm just like, bro, who asked you? Who asked you? I didn't want to be born, bro. I didn't give you my consent to be here. You see, now that I'm older and I've went through life, I can tell you without any shame that I would have preferred not to be born. And this is not some depressive negative shit. This is absolute fact, truth. Right? Be born here? In this place for what? This place is a nightmare. And my folks brought me here without my consent, without thinking of the consequences, and they still have the audacity to criticize their kids. Oh, you ungrateful brat. You don't know what we've sacrificed. Who asked you? Right? This is what I don't like about parents. Their hypocrisy. They can't see beyond their little bubble. They think that having a kid is such a phenomenal thing. I gave you life. I gave you clothes. I gave you... Who asked you? You did not think about it, about the consequences. Your kid, one way or another, will have to go through some sort of suffering, some sort of agony. And it's your fault in part because you decided to have kids. Right? And the worst part is that you, being lazy, did not think it to be important for you to be there for your kid, to instruct your kid on how to avoid, the things that you suffered, the things that you went through. You did not stay there for your kid, to instruct your kid to avoid all of these traps in life. because you are lazy, because you think you've given your kid everything, because you think you've sacrificed a lot for your kid. Who asked you, right? I never demanded anything about my parents because they had this attitude, right? You know, and I've posed this question in a previous video, and I will ask parents who are watching this video now. If you are a parent, this is a hypothetical. Let's just say you're a parent, and one day your kid will come to you and your kid will reveal to you that your kid thinks that, life is pointless, everything is a joke, your kid wished not to be born, everything is just miserable, life is just a torture, nothing makes any sense. When your kid brings these topics to you, if your kid is even suicidal because of despair, let's just say a 12-year-old, what will you do? What will you do to, I don't know, comfort or help your child who's going through this? Because I would say that a lot of parents will be like, man, shut up, kid, you don't know what you're talking about, and dismiss it. This is why I never talked to my folks, because I knew that they would dismiss it. Oh, you're a kid. You don't know nothing about nothing, shorty. Meanwhile, I was suicidal for half of my life, and they're like, you don't know nothing, kid. Move along, right? It's a shame, that parents never consider this. Right, that life might be hell on earth for your kid. You think that every kid is happy-go-lucky. Some of them aren't. Okay, some of them see through the bullshit and they realize that life is a nightmare. And you don't notice. Listen, a parent has to be vigilant. A parent has to be vigilant. You have to see the red flags, my guy. Okay, you have to see the red flags. You have no idea what's happening to your kid. You think that if your kid is like 9 years old, you think your kid is fucking stupid or something. No, let me tell you, kids are perceptive as hell. Perceptive as hell in their own way, right? And listen, I would have to say this. Because parents bring children into this nightmare of a life, without thinking about the consequences that their kids will inevitably suffer terrible, terrible stuff. I would say this is my only suggestion, advice to parents. If you're gonna have kids, for whatever reason, make sure that your kid is set for life in terms of finances. Okay, if you decide to have kids, your responsibility to that kid will be finances. That kid will never have to work a day in his or her life. Your kid should never have to worry about, bills and shit. That should be your responsibility because you decided to bring a kid into this nightmare of a life, this hell of a life. Okay, and I think that should be law. You know what? I wanted to be a trust fund baby. I wanted to be a Nepo baby and just sit like this until I'm a grandpa myself, right? This is what I wanted, okay? If you bring kids into this world, I think it is your moral responsibility and your duty to make sure that your kid has a trust fund for life, set for life financially, because this is the least that you can do for your kid for bringing them into this, world of slavery and deception and pain and suffering. This is your responsibility as a parent, And this is it. I would say that if couples want to have kids for whatever demented reason, but if you're a couple and you want to have kids, I think that these couples need to be subjected to, of course, physical health examinations, and of course, mental, psychological examinations, thorough as hell, and especially, how do I say this? Biological examinations in terms of their DNA. Okay, this should be key. And if you want to be a parent, I think that you need to get these checkups, because who knows what kind of biological cocktail you have that will produce a kid with all sorts of problems, health-wise, who knows what. Okay, I think this should be written law. You want to have kids? Health examination, psychological examination, and biological examination. Let's see what's happening under the hood. Are you normal up here? What's your DNA like? And what will happen in combination with your partner's DNA? Will some sort of terrible thing happen? Because who wants a kid with health problems, right? So all of these things need to be taken into consideration, because, folks, so many people, I don't know, maybe because they're young and they're ignorant or whatever, they decide to have kids without thinking, without considering the consequences, and their kid turns out to have all sorts of problems: mental problems, emotional problems, social problems, health problems, physical problems, or all of them, And who wants that? Who wants that? You have to be responsible, sonny boy, buddy, okay? If you want to be a parent, maybe this video will make you think twice. And listen, this is how I'll end it. There's nothing more I hate than parents who dismiss their kids just because they're young, just because they're little kids, It's the most disgusting thing I have ever seen in my life, Maybe a kid, let's just say your kid is like 6 years old, but your kid feels a certain despair, no matter how primitive or simplistic, and your kid might not know how to deal with this, and this kid, trusting you, brings forth this problem to you, and instead of discussing it and explaining things, you just dismiss your kid because, I just came from work, fuck off, just play some video games, bubba. Like, I've seen this, and it happened to me, and I've seen it happened to other kids, and it's just, listen, everything you say and everything you do, especially the negative, will be ingrained in your kid's psyche for life. And people usually remember the bad stuff because they are marked by it. Okay? Do not dismiss your kids just because they're little kids who don't know nothing about nothing. Okay? Because you might be shocked to find out what kind of consequences this dismissal might have, But people don't understand the importance that everything that influences your kid might have devastating consequences in the future, right? Devastating consequences in the future. Debilitating for the psyche, especially emotionally, right? And I guess this is how we'll end it. Advice to all the parents: be very careful. Be very careful. Be vigilant. Because there's nothing more important than making sure that a little kid turns out to be a normal, functional, decent human being. That is the most important. That is almost a divine, law or mission or rule or whatever you want to call it. People have kids and they give their kids stuff and they think, well, my job here is done, bubba. Like, it ain't so. Yeah, y'all need to wake up real quick, okay? If you want to support your boy, if you enjoy this content, I got a few books on Amazon. The link will be down below. Thanks for watching. Think for yourself. See you later.